Welcome along to the Army List Analysis series, and today we are continuing with our analysis of armies in late antiquity, and we're looking at one of the most popular armies in the game and also in wargaming in general, tabletop and so on. The Byzantine 551 AD list with Arab allies. I've decided to take the Arab allies because I felt that they offered some really good, reasonably priced troops, like the Bedouin Cav. If you remember my video when I was looking at, was it Arab City? And yeah, Arab City. And these troops are great because they're cheap lancers. And one of the problems with the Byzantine list, I would say, would be the price of their units. A lot of their units are quite expensive, and some of them you don't have a lot of choice on whether to take them or not, like the veteran Byzantine Lancers at 72. We have to take one of those. Byzantine Lancers even at 54, we have to take 3 of those. Armoured horse archers at 52. I mean, you've just got, you know, with the Bedouin Cav, the protected lancers at 36, they just offer a lot more value for money than Byzantine lancers at 54, in my opinion anyway. And the same with the armoured horse archers at 52. You may as well just get, you know, the lighter type. And even these are overpriced. I mean, 48. A lot of armies, you get the light horse archers at around 40, but here you're paying 48 for their quality. And similar story with the Byzantine flankers. 48 for light horse archers is pretty expensive. I'd rather just pay 40 for the regular type. So that is one issue, I think, with the Byzantine list. The pricing. The infantry, we have got some half decent infantry. Dismounted noble lancers, you do have the option to take the armored noble lancers, but it just, you don't get so much infantry, and the infantry you get, like the Legio Comitatensis, is, I was doing some tests actually, and because I remember playing against, I think I was playing against this army, and these troops, I think historically, they're kind of anti-cav units, and they do well against cavalry. So in that sense, they're a good buy. But in terms of fighting infantry, they're just underwhelming, really. They're underwhelming because they cost 51 for starters. They're heavy foot, average, some armor, and you think, okay, that's pretty good. But then when you look at the stats and the POA advantages and so on, because they are swordsmen, they just suffer. They just suffer against spear and better quality units. So against warband, they're 110 down, and then they're 12 up in melee. They're evens against the picked spear, but then 25 down in melee. And so all kind of spear units are going to have that advantage because they're swordsmen. They get half the POA of spear basically, and then they got a little bit extra because they've got some armor, but that still puts them at 25 down against the picked spear. And even against your kind of bog standard, average, very average Sassanid foot and the Bedouin foot, they're evens on impact, and they're only 12 up in melee. And, you know, around, I always say under 50, there's not that much difference in POA terms and outcome on a battlefield. If you're only 20, 30 up, that's about evens, really. And so to be only 12 up against units that cost 36, and these units cost 51, that is not great, really. So your infantry is a bit underwhelming. It's a bit underwhelming. And also what I found was there's a bit of a drop. You've got these raw protected spear, the Limitani, but they're, you can't rely on them. They're okay to bulk out your units and your line a bit, but then there's a huge jump, isn't there? I mean, I've got the Arab allies here, so if I just had the standard list without allies, you'd be jumping up from 24 to 51. We don't have hardly any, fairly standard, reasonably priced infantry, and even this Bedouin foot is medium foot. So we struggle a little bit. There. We do have a lot of cavalry, especially with the Arab allies. We've got these wonderful Bedouin Cav. I've talked about them in other videos. Just great value for money because they are Lancers, so they get the 100 POA, but they only cost 36. Real bargain. Average protected Lancers, fantastic. And then we've got your better kind of Lancers. The Noble Lancers also pretty good at 48. That's a great price as well because they are superior quality Lancers, so that's great. And then you jump up to the Byzantine Lancers at 54. You've got some camels. I love camels. They will be in my top 10 when I do it. We can take 2 with the Arab allies. I've mentioned these units before in other videos. They're just fantastic because they've got that disordering modifier. So it works out, roughly speaking, they're on a par with Byzantine Lancers, for example. Because when cavalry is around 60 up, Byzantine Lancers are about 62 up in the POA terms on camels. Once you factor in the disordering modifier, it's evens. It's roughly even. So they're actually evens with Byzantine Lancers, which are armoured above average Lancers. So they're pretty good. And these units will hold. So anything below that, Noble Lancers, Noble Cav, Armoured Cav, they generally will beat that kind of cavalry. And even better quality units, they'll hold them in place for quite a while. And the other thing you've got to take into account is they have a bow as well. So in my tests, they were inflicting maybe 20 casualties just from one unit. So if you've got 2 together, you're going to get maybe a roughly 40 casualties in one cav unit, which is a heck of a lot when cavalry only, it's only about 240 men. So really nice unit. Skirmishers, pretty good. We've got the cheaper end ones, about half. I've taken 8. That's about average, it seems, in LA. Armies seem to have around 8 to 10 skirmisher units. A few can take it more, but this will do us. It was also interesting, if you remember my video I did with the Bosporans, wasn't it? The Bosporans. It was a very, very similar map next to the sea. And so for infantry kind of heavy armies, that is good. And okay, we've got a lot of cavalry, but well, it's sort of a little bit in between everything really, because we do have some good infantry, like the dismounted noble lancers, but we can only take 2 of them, and then it drops down to the dismounted noble lancers, but again we can only take 2 of them, and then you've got your kind of average Legio Comitatensis. So I know in the base build you'd get a little bit more, but then you'd have a lot more expensive cav. So that's the kind of don't have really great infantry, and we don't have really decent cavalry. It's either too expensive or missing a few units, like the horse archers. We don't have your nomad horse archers. Just got a lot of fairly expensive lancers, fairly expensive horse archers that we do have. The armored kind at 52, it's quite expensive, and even these fierce nomad ones, they're 48. So struggling with costs. When I had a look at the win rate is 44%, so it's not very high. It's a fair bit less than the other armies. The Arab city was about 58%, so there's a big difference there. Lombard was 57%, Bosporan was 56%. So 44, it isn't great, and I think that's mainly because of the Legio being very average and costing a fair bit, and just quite an imbalance with the cavalry, really. You can still do a fair bit of damage because these lancers are really good. Good value, and then backed up by Byzantine Lancers and a few of these expert horse archers. Again, how many can we take? Yeah, see, we're maxed. If we could even take 3 or 4 of those guys, they are really good units. So we're just lacking a little bit. We do have some light horse. So my rating, is it going to be, am I going to go B minus? Maybe B. I was at this beginning of the video, I was thinking about B. But as I go into it a bit more and look, and flexibility, what's the flexibility? Not very good. Infantry, very limited. You have to jump up to the dismounted armored noble lancers, and then there's no more Legio, no more dismounted noble lancers we can take. It's just really quite limited with infantry, and the options here now that I'm maxed on the noble lancers, can't take any more of those. I'd like to take some more expert armored horse archers, but we're maxed there. 64 for the armored noble lancers is quite expensive. Can't take any more camels. Again, even Byzantine Lancers 54, pretty expensive, even though we can take another 5 of those. So I think I'm going to go about a B minus. Not to say that this isn't a pretty good army. It is actually pretty good. With the Lancers and some of these better quality infantry, but we just don't have enough of them. We don't have enough of them. Yeah, we definitely need some spear, average kind of spearmen. We just drop a big drop down to the raw quality spear and the medium foot. So yeah, a B minus from me, I think, is justified. If you've played with this army, let me know what you think. Maybe you've taken out a different build. Maybe you didn't take the Arab allies out. So yeah, do let us know. But yeah, it's about a B- from me. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you again soon.